Hi, everybody. Welcome to Wowza Studio Sessions. My name is Tim Doherty. I am a senior solutions engineer at Wowza Media Systems. And we're here at NAB. I'm sure some of you have been following us here with the Wowza Studio Sessions live. So I'm very excited to be here. Today I'm joined by Sean Prisbilla from Amazon Web Services. Sean, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And Sean, what do you do at Amazon?
I'm a solutions architect, specifically for the media and entertainment industry. So I help anybody in the industry adopt cloud services.
Okay, cool. So you're helping people spin up Amazon instances and get in there and find out how to use their workflows, their
Yeah,
various stuff.
exactly. Yep.
Cool.
I help everybody from direct customers using the console for the first time for visual effects, editing in the cloud, asset management and archive, OTT streaming, broadcast play out in the cloud, whether they're partners, direct customers, anybody who needs help using our services, I'm there to help them.
Cool. Sounds good. I think people are probably really comfortable working with you.
Yeah.
I was thinking about how we could approach our conversation today, and I know that you and I kind of, and I guess it's not right to call yourself a regular guy. It's like anyone who calls themselves a regular guy should be somewhat suspect. That being said, I'd like us to talk briefly about Amazon and the tools there,
Yeah.
and how a couple regular guys would use it.
Sure.
I'm not talking about people with no tech skills, but I do know that using very deep technologies like Amazon, sometimes it can be a little intimidating. So
Yep.
I'd like to kind of talk in the tone of breaking down that what can be intimidation. I'll give you an example. Let me
Okay.
give you a real world
Sure.
example. With Wowza, you can, of course, deploy our software in a pre-built instance. It's available in the Amazon Marketplace. You can purchase a license from us. There's all sorts of ways to get Wowza running in Amazon. A friend of mine who I introduced to Wowza literally built his live piano lessons business using an Amazon instance running Wowza streaming engine.
Nice.
And it's really cool because he is a musician. He has some pretty good organizational skills. He's really good with technology as an end user. I was able to teach him how to start a Wowza instance, maintain it, and run it inside Amazon. So it was this huge opportunity where you go and you got EC2 and you have S3 and you have all the networking tools. He's a regular guy, and he's been doing this for several years, being successful, making money, running on Amazon. So I just with that being said, what do you think about that approach? I don't know if that gets a lot of discussion. Just regular people using Amazon for various services.
Well, I think that's exactly why we have the platform, is for anybody to start using infrastructure at the click of a button, right? So I think it's great to hear that story, because that's exactly what we want to hear, is that that builders are using the platform and they're getting their hands dirty, they're learning, they're maybe scraping their knees, learning some things about the services, and modifying their approach when they learn new techniques or new services or new ways to build things. So I think the best thing anyone can do is open an account and just start building. We have a ton of quick starts. We have a ton of materials on GitHub, workshops that we've done at reInvent. And I think the best thing anybody can do is look on Google, GitHub, look in AWS Answers, answers.amazon.com, I'm sorry. There's some reference architectures using infrastructure as code, so CloudFormation templates, and open an account, launch one of those things, and start breaking stuff. Have fun and learn. That's
I love
my
it.
advice.
I love it. It sounds like it's okay to learn
okay.
as you go in Amazon, right?
Yep.
I've learned as I went in Amazon. With Wowza, we have tons of tutorials online. In fact, I think we have over 600 quote-unquote articles
Wow.
that you can build streaming stuff with. But they're also tutorials. And so you can take a Wowza tutorial and kind of merge it with a AWS EC2 tutorial, and you can actually get somewhere with it.
Yeah. Do you know do you have any CloudFormation templates or like quick start launch guides that use some of our other services to manage that infrastructure? Do you know?
As far as CloudFormation, I don't think so. I think everything that we do with Wowza pre-built is just pre-built AMIs, Amazon Machine instances in EC2.
Gotcha.
Not to say that our customers and us wouldn't leverage that. In fact, I hear of people, video engineers, developers, doing incredible things with streaming.
Yep.
And some of those services that I don't know a lot about. Like, and correct me if I pronounce this wrong. Lambda.
Lambda, yep.
Lambda.
Yep,
Now that's
yep,
like demand. You can write code,
yep.
and then you get billed only for the usage of
For
the CPU?
the invocation time.
Okay,
Yep.
the invocation time. Got it.
Yep. So the length of time it takes to run the code in that instantiation of that function, basically. So
That's amazing.
instead of managing the EC2 instance, instead of having to deal with high availability and multiple availability zones, you can simply upload your code to Lambda, invoke it via an event that's generated, say, from an S3 object upload. Maybe there's a media file that you've uploaded to S3. It can send an event trigger to Lambda, and that Lambda function can then schedule, say, jobs on Media Convert or orchestrate QC or orchestrate all other types of functions. So we see Lambda as a really popular service for media orchestration workloads on AWS, just because it's so easy and it abstracts away the undifferentiated heavy lifting that is managing compute infrastructure, even in the virtualized sense.
So you can dive in and just start coding or setting up scripts and such.
Yeah, scripts. There's a lot of folks who decompose their scripts into Lambda functions, and they're interacting with other services, and we're seeing this whole new class of automation systems, which is just sysadmins and back-end engineers who are using Lambda just to orchestrate their media processing workflows with whatever services, whether that's a Wowza or Media Convert or any of the media services we provide or Elastic Transcoder. It doesn't really matter. Lambda is a great orchestration engine or orchestration system.
Yeah. Do you think that that's like a paradigm shift? That it's going to get away from spinning up your own instances and maintaining a server in a cloud environment, and more so using what you just mentioned. What was that term at the end there? It was the instantation. That when I forget the term that you mentioned, but I'm just thinking that it's very interesting that you can just go in there and start running the system without having to set up infrastructure.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, we want to provide options at every level of abstraction. So I definitely see a shift in our industry as well as the other industries that I interact with towards serverless architectures. Serverless meaning, I don't, as a developer, have to manage services. Infrastructure. I can just, call an API, call a function, receive a response. Maybe a HTTP response or something. And I don't have to worry about the compute primitives underlying that. And this applies to not only compute, but also databases. So DynamoDB is our fully serverless database, NoSQL database engine. Same story there. You don't have to manage cross database replication. You don't have to manage scaling, versioning of the database.
Wow.
You can simply just enter data from your Lambda functions into the database, and away you go. So serverless is definitely an emerging paradigm for all industries and cloud computing in general. So it's really awesome to see how people are using these new primitives to build faster, because now that I don't have to manage all that infrastructure, I can focus on building new application logic, new features for my end customer. And so at Amazon Web Services, we view our jobs as removing that undifferentiated heavy lifting that is managing that infrastructure. But there's also still partners in certain applications, like an HPC, and transcoding is another good one, where you still need those core compute primitives like EC2 or our container service that manages EC2 infrastructure on your behalf. So it depends on the application, but I think
it's very interesting you would bring up transcoding. I actually have a customer of ours who's experimenting with transcoding on the Lambda environment. But to your point, with Wowza Streaming Engine, we're helping our customers size those instances in EC2 on a regular basis, because that's a big piece of it. I mean, running transcoding in a environment like what you just described sounds like a really edgy thing to do, whereas you come back to running an Amazon instance, an actual computer or virtual computer, and running that transcoding, there's a little more structure to that. Even using like a G2 instance where it's GPU enabled, or starting the calculation process of what size instance do I need for my transcoding workflow. Understanding in Lambda, you probably wouldn't have to calculate that as much, or you would get a feel for it,
Yeah.
versus a regular instance.
There are Lambda does have some configuration options like memory and some basic resource allocation, but it's definitely a different paradigm than say right sizing your EC2
Right.
instance.
Yeah.
So there are a few configuration options, but it's I don't think there's nowhere near the amount of options as you have with our compute infrastructure,
Okay.
for instance. And I think it's interesting to note that even though I called out transcoding as something that we tend to see on EC2 instances, I have seen some really novel use cases of using, say, something like FFmpeg compiled inside a Lambda function, transcoding media segments in Lambda natively, because those media segments are so small, the invocation time and the maximum duration of invocation is not an issue. So we've seen some really interesting use cases that you might not think of even in the transcoding space in a serverless architecture. So
Wow.
we're seeing it kind of proliferate all different kinds of
I'm
these
very
architectures.
curious where that goes and to see what the smart people end up doing that. I'm realizing, Sean, that you and I are doing what we all do in Amazon. We go down the rabbit hole, right? We just went down the Lambda rabbit hole. I want to honor kind of the tone I'm setting here. So regular technologist, technology enthusiast, IT guy, whoever, he gets into Amazon. How does he stay up to date on all this stuff? Like, you just dumped a whole bunch of really good information on me. I'm not taking notes because I have a mic in my hand, but I'm like, that is really interesting. But how does a guy who maybe gets stuck in a rut doing the same, maybe he's running the same Wowza instance or doing the same thing over and over in Amazon, how do you expand and get smarter and figure out stuff?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think there's a lot of different answers to it. I think it comes down to the individual and how we learn as human beings, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can speak to my approach because it's my job to stay up to date on all these things. So I have my own systems. First and foremost, we've recently launched a media and entertainment blog on the AWS site. So I'd recommend everybody check that out.
Cool.
It'd be great to have some guest contributions from our
Why
friends
not?
at Wowza.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So if you read blogs or have an RSS reader, you can subscribe to one of our many ecosystem of blogs. There's the What's New blog. There's the Jeff Barr blog, Jeff Barr is an amazing technologist, and he writes a ton about what's coming out on our platform, as well as giving practical tutorials on how to get started with an individual service.
Cool.
So the Jeff Barr blog is awesome. There's also our certification and training programs. We post all of our reInvent content onto YouTube. So I would highly recommend checking out the media and entertainment track from reInvent last year. There's just a ton of information out there, and I think it depends on how you learn.
Okay.
But yeah, happy to continue at length about this topic for quite some time.
Well, obviously, there's no lack of things to do in Amazon in that management console, and that's fantastic. You do have to take some initiative, though, don't you? You have to get out there and read some blogs, and I learned by breaking something and then struggling to fix it.
Yeah.
I may be the technology guy who learned through the School of Hard Knocks, and I'm at a point now where I just love to see what I can do inside Amazon. I mean, I even want to set up my own remote desktop and use it as my personal thing, because you guys have like a
Try it.
Windows remote desktop thing. But
Workspaces, yeah.
I'm getting somewhere with this, though. I feel like people that go into AWS get intimidated. Like they feel like they're unqualified almost to get in there. Like, I'm launching instances, and it's very intuitive, but there are times when it's just I'm a little overwhelmed, but I'm getting things done. And then I'll step back and say it like this: have you ever had someone hand you a spreadsheet, and it was their spreadsheet?
Yes.
And they think it's great, and you have no idea what they're doing. I worry sometimes I set things up in AWS where I've got this instance doing this, and I have this data over here, and I'm using S3. I have no way of validating if I'm doing the right thing or not. And sometimes it's that. I mean, the good part is you can dive in and find your way and set up cool stuff. But what do you say to the person who wonders, how am I doing here?
I would say embrace failure. Have fun, break things, and learn.
Yes.
That's that's one of the benefits of cloud computing and our platform is to have fun with it. I would say also, have an application in mind. If you want to do a remote desktop, take it for a spin, and if things go wrong, fail fast and learn from it, and you'll learn to live another day. Combining a couple things there. I'd also say that if you're taking it to the next level and you've built something and you want to make sure that it's production ready, maybe you're launching a new app or something like that. We do have a series of resources around our well-architected program.
Well-architected?
Yep, AWS well-architected.
Okay.
And it's a great set of resources to walk you through your architecture and help you think about problems you may not have considered, and then provide guidance on how you might resolve those types of challenges. So how are you storing your root credentials? How are you managing IAM, access to your services? How are the services calling each other? How are you thinking about high availability, resiliency? How are you, just these general questions that kind of probe you to think about your architecture and analyze it from every angle, hopefully imaginable, and give you that confidence. At least you've thought about it, and at least you've considered these things.
I didn't even know that was there, and I'll be honest. I've wondered if I'm screwing up on my AWS credentials. Is that okay that I did that, or it's just you mentioned just in general. Am I using the server properly? Am I overtasking it? That made me want to ask you something. In EC2, there's the monitoring tools, and I don't really use them much. Is that kind of a best practice similar to what you'd find in that check that you described, where some things you should probably go in and turn on or turn off? Or
so there's a pillar of the well-architected framework that's all about operational excellence and how you're observing these systems and how you're managing, how you're collecting alerts, collecting logging information, collecting actionable insights, and how you remediate issues automatically when they arise. So there is a whole pillar just on this topic that will introduce you to a lot of the features, a lot of the services, and help you navigate those types of questions. So I'd highly recommend that, and we can talk at length about operational excellence at another time, hopefully.
It sounds like a very, very important thing. We're going to wrap this up shortly, but I've been dying to ask you this question. AWS command line interface, or should I use the console?
Can I say both?
You have to answer it however you feel best, Sean.
Yeah, so I would say both. I think overwhelmingly we find that people learn, they're visual learners. So, I find that the best thing you can do if you want to learn a new service is to log into the console. A lot of the services have demonstration kind of demos built right into the console experience, or kind of configurators, as I like to call them, for the services. So I like to personally start with the console to learn what the service does, how it's configured, kind of what the thinking behind the model that is the service and all of its features. And then as I move towards automating or trying to remove redundancy, if I'm going to use that service a lot for a specific application, that's when I make the decision to start using the command line, because that enables me to automate, write bash scripts, things like that. So both.
Cool. That's a great answer. Just my last statement here is, the concluding statement is there's a lot of video running through Wowza streaming engine in Amazon servers across the globe. They're doing all sorts of things: scaling, auto-scaling, load balancing. There's a single instance, like my friend that I mentioned at the beginning, to multiple instance build-outs. What would you say to someone, just in general, just as a statement of operating with video on EC2 and Wowza? What would be your advice?
It's a good question.
Like,
just with video in general, live video, VOD.
Let's say I'm transcoding and I'm looking for that just right instance sizing. Sorry if I pulled this question out of the blue, but what would you say as far as just the future, how things are developing? What would you suggest that people do as they build out instances in Amazon and just want to be good at it?
Yeah, I think my advice would be automate everything you can, so
Excellent.
that you can abstract away that undifferentiated heavy lifting, that stuff you do every time you open the console. Start building, learn CloudFormation, our infrastructure as code service, so that you can start building up those templates, build that arsenal of tools, so that you can abstract your learning and abstract kind of the things you're building to the next level and add more value to your customers, whether that's internally or to your direct customers at Wowza.
Okay, great. Well, I just want to say thank you for this conversation. I enjoyed it. I continue to be a big fan of just being a regular guy using Amazon. There's so much that you can do with it. It's been great. Do you have any questions for me before we wrap up?
You didn't leave me any time.
I'm
we should do this again.
Yeah,
and
we
I
should.
could ask you a ton of questions,
Yeah,
but I think we're
definitely.
good for now.
Put me in the hot seat next time.
Exactly.
Right?
That sounds good. We'll do that next time. We'll do this again, I'm sure.
All right. Thanks very much. Have a great rest of your time at the show.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
That's all for us here at Wowza Media Systems. Thanks for watching.